and welcome to the webinar, Fix Your Broken PPC Campaign, presented by Trada. I'm Anna Sawyer, and I'm here with Matt Hessler.
Hey, Anna. You seem kind of low energy. This should be exciting. We're going to fix some broken campaigns.
We are. I am excited about this. Everyone, just a couple housekeeping items is what I heard someone call it on another webinar, so I'm going to call it that today. Before we get started, first of all, we would love it if you would use the hashtag FixPPC on Twitter, and we will give an Amazon.com gift card for $25 to one of the people who tweet using the hashtag today. So tweet something that Matt or myself says, share our knowledge with the world about fixing your PPC campaign. And moving right along, as I mentioned, I'm here with Matt Hessler. He's the Director of Account Management here at Trada. He's been fixing people's PPC campaigns for more than 10 years.
Oh, dear God, and I've seen every kind of broken campaign, so this is going to be really fun for me.
Yep. Finally, this is being recorded, everyone, so you will get a copy of the recording and the slides later today in your email, so look for that. And if you have any questions, we hope you do, please type them directly into the chat box. We will get to as many as we can at the end. Please feel free to be specific. We want to help you solve your problems.
Absolutely, especially for this type of webinar. I mean, we can cover a lot of general stuff, but we're here as a resource, so help us help you to fix your campaigns.
Absolutely. Everyone, type those questions in. All right, we're going to start off with a little bit of fun here. Let's talk about the three biggest disasters of our time. Number one is, of course, as you all remember, the Dante's Peak eruption. Pierce Brosnan helped us narrowly escape that. And then finally the Armageddon, which I don't think we survived at all. And then the worst disaster of our time is the fact that your PPC campaign needs help. It
is true. There is nothing worse than a sadly broken PPC campaign that is either delivering terrible ROI, high CPAs, or no volume. It's the worst.
Frankly, it can be utterly devastating to have a PPC campaign that's not working well. I mean, you can be basically throwing your money away. It can be really, really frustrating. And believe it or not, it happens to the best of us. It can happen very easily and very quickly.
And the worst part, I think, is when you go from a campaign that's working pretty well to a campaign that becomes a disaster because you just don't have time to manage it. You take your hands off the wheel for a little bit. You're working, like so many of us, on other marketing efforts. And that's the crazy thing about search. It's such a dynamic space. It changes all the time. You could have new players, advertising against you in the search results, and all of a sudden your results are starting to really wane.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a few of the ways that your campaign can fail in just a moment. But first I'd like to do a poll. Everyone, if you don't mind clicking directly onto your screen, this is a multiple choice and multiple answer question. Please let me know, if you are having problems with PPC, what are those problems? Please go ahead, click directly on your screen, help us answer these questions. So remember, you can click more than one, and more than often, when your campaign starts to fail, it's like, an exponential failure. A couple things might start to slip, and then a lot of problems will come through. So, maybe you're not hitting your CPA. We'll talk a little bit about setting expectations correctly and how, you can get data on how you should set your CPA. Some of you may be seeing low volume of clicks or conversions. Quality score issues seem to be pretty pervasive. In fact, we're going to focus a lot on quality score today. You may be experiencing a high cost per click or a poor lead or visitor quality. So it looks like the answers are rolling in. I'm going to give you just about another 10 seconds to get these in.
Perfect.
All right.
And, hopefully we've obviously got slides already prepared, so we can't totally reorder everything, but we'd like to try to tailor this to, some of the issues you guys are finding to be the most, serious on your campaign.
Yeah, we're going to try and address as many of your specific issues as possible. All right, let's skip to the results. Most of you are saying low volume of conversions, which is a very obvious problem. If you're not getting enough conversions, then what's the point of search?
Followed closely by quality score issues, one of our favorite here. Google's quality score, in an effort to make results more tailored for the searcher, the quality score has wreaked havoc on many a well-performing campaign and caused all kinds of problems, so we will definitely address some of that.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about quality score today. So here are some of the ways that your campaign can specifically start to fail. You could have set it up poorly from the beginning. This is a really common problem because many of us, when we started our paid search campaigns, were just learning about paid search. And, a lot of the things that you set up when you start, may seem like the right decisions, but they may not be. Setting the wrong expectations. We'll talk a little bit about how to be realistic with your expectations and how to gather data around how to set them. Campaign was left to run unattended. Now, this could be, the fault of perhaps a previous PPC manager who left the company and you were brought in and you have to fix this big old mess. Or, it could just be that you got busy, didn't log in for a while. The market is constantly changing. You really have to remember that. And then finally, maybe your bids are too low. You're not hitting this, first page, which will cause a low volume problem. So this, I know this is going to seem really devastating, but we're just going to move on to the solutions in a moment. It gets even more complex after this.
Oh my gosh, it's like an atomic diagram here.
Yes, I feel like I should have another Armageddon picture here. There's so many things that can go wrong. Maybe your ad groups were set up incorrectly. You need more keywords. You have the wrong campaign settings. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these because you guys can read. But there's just a lot of things that can go wrong.
So, we're going to try to take it from the top, think about, from where you're at now with your campaign. And I think Anna's right. The two most common, situations I've come across are either people who started their PPC campaign when they didn't know too much, it was a learn-on-the-job kind of thing, and they started with some bad practices, or they're inheriting some bad practices, and we'll take a look at both of those scenarios and start to figure out how you can make some changes. Our goal is that you guys would leave here with, 3 to 10 things that you could take away and really make some positive strides on your campaign.
Yep, so one thing about a failing campaign is that it often boils down to quality score. So we're going to talk a lot about quality score. A lot of the issues that may have come from poor setup or from leaving things alone have to do with quality score. If you leave your campaign alone for a while, click rate will drop, and that will decrease your quality score. If you set up your campaign incorrectly with lots of big fat ad groups that aren't thematically relevant, your quality score will suffer. So we're going to talk a lot about how to repair your quality score and thus repair your campaign.
And for those of you that are, a little bit newer to PPC and you're not familiar with the term quality score is Google's assessment of, they look at a keyword and its relationship to the ad that keyword will trigger, and then the landing page that visitor would go to upon clicking on the ad. So they're looking at how relative are all of those things.
And then they also look at click-through rate.
And then they look at your click-through rate and your bid price to determine where you'll be served. And a lot of times, if you get a low quality score, you will actually find yourself either depressed in the search results where you're appearing in a much lower position, or Google will outright ask you to pay more per click because they feel that your particular keyword ad landing page combination is less relevant than others for that query.
And if you guys are newer to search, we actually have a page of resources where we have actually 2 different webinars about quality score. You can check it out at trada.com/resources. And Sarah, our awesome marketing intern, will type that in so you guys can have that link.
And quality score, should be obvious to everyone in their campaigns in both Google and in Ad Center, which is the Microsoft Yahoo property. If you log in there, next to every keyword, they actually assign a quality score at that keyword level, so it's a keyword attribute in your AdWords or Ad Center interface.
Make sure that you're always cognizant of your quality score, because if you're seeing low quality scores, your campaign is not doing as well as it could. So we'll talk a little bit about the effect that having a poor quality score and a good quality score can have on your campaign. I know this is a little bit of a confusing diagram here, but basically, if you have a higher quality score, and quality score goes from 1 to 10, the lower your click price and the higher your ad position. So these things are good. So have a high quality score, and your campaign will be doing well. But if you have a low quality score, all these things happen. You're paying more for clicks than other people who have the same data. You're paying more for clicks than your competitors. Your competitors will rank above you. Your click-through rate will suffer, and it will be hard to fix.
It is. Quality score is a historic thing. They actually look at the quality score at the time of every new click, but that history stays with you. So if you currently have a low quality score, and that's holding you back on the campaign, it is going to be a little tough to dig out from that. So we want to pay attention to quality score from minute 1 and make sure we're maximizing our quality score at every opportunity.
Yep. So let's talk about just a few very specific best practices for getting a good quality score, and we're actually going to address each one of these. And guys, we're getting a lot of questions about what is a good quality score, and normally we save our questions for the end, but I thought we should address this right now while they're flowing in. Matt, will you talk a little bit about what is a good quality score? So keep in mind that it goes from 1 to 10.
So it's on a 1 to 10 scale. I'm going to speak specifically to Google, although Ad Center, which is the Microsoft, Bing, Yahoo property, has also fairly recently, we're probably 4 or 5 months in now, rolled out a quality score mechanism that's very similar to Google. But with Google specifically, Quality scores that are below 3, and in some cases 3 or below, will be penalized and required to pay higher bid prices. When you get in the 4 to 6 range, that's considered an acceptable quality score. You typically will not see a bid price alteration, at the 5 and 6 for sure. Sometimes 4s I've seen go both ways, depending honestly on how competitive the landscape is. So if you're in dating or insurance or some of these hyper-competitive verticals, quality score of 4 may be enough to force you into a higher bid price. Above a quality score of 6, so we're talking 7, 8, 9, those are excellent quality scores. 10, and we've heard this from Google directly here at Trada, a quality score of 10 is almost always reserved for a brand term. So this is Coca-Cola buying their keyword on an exact match and going to Coca-Cola.com. That's going to garner a 10. Those of you out there that are looking to move your quality scores from a 7 to an 8, 9, or 10, it's a valiant effort. It's kind of logarithmic, so it's very hard to do, and the return isn't that great. If you're getting 5, 6s, and 7s, your quality scores are okay. If you're down there in the 2s, 3s, and 4s, you're the people that need to be listening for some of these best practices.
We always say that one important part of search marketing is swallowing your pride a little bit. Don't go for ad position 1 and don't go for quality score 10 because it's a bit of a wasted effort. Go for ad position 2 and quality score 9 and you're doing really well. And frankly, some people can do very well with quality score 4, so it really, really can depend. And the price change comes at around 3. Is that correct?
That's correct. It does depend on, again, how competitive your industry is, but you will be asked to pay more for quality scores, certainly below 3. In some cases, even 3s and 4s may be required to pay a higher bid price with those quality scores.
So moving right along, keeping in mind that in order to get a good quality score, you need to have a high click-through rate and have high relevance, and make sure that your ads are showing on the first page. These are the things you should really focus on for getting a good quality score. Small, relevant ad groups, bids priced to show ads on the first page. If your ads are showing on the second page, you're going to be getting low volume, because most people don't click through to the second page. Making sure that your keyword and your ad and your landing page all have keyword relevance, and then also making sure that you write compelling ad copy that gets clicks. So now we're going to talk about how to address these issues and how to fix things. Now, Matt is really good at fixing stuff. Here's a picture of him fixing a Jeep.
Oh, wow. Handsome, handy, and humble.
I also have some experience fixing things, but frankly, I think I'm a little bit better at repairing PPC campaigns than cutting wood. So.
You look like you're breaking something.
I'm wearing safety goggles. So everyone put on your safety goggles, and we are going to talk about how to fix your campaign. All right, here are the steps. Make sure your ad groups are organized. Even if you organize your ad groups impeccably from the very beginning, things may have changed. You may be seeing keywords within ad groups that aren't performing as well. It's a good idea to move these things around and reorder them. And if you are concerned about losing quality score, Matt and I actually recorded a podcast addressing this very issue last week. I believe it was posted on Monday. Sarah, if you don't mind entering that URL so people can check out the podcast from Monday, where we very specifically talk about the concern of whether you should reorder your campaigns and possibly lose quality score. But the short answer is no. I mean, you will lose quality score for a little while, but it's worth it to try it. So get your ad groups organized, get your click-through rate up, get your settings dialed in. This is a big one. And then get your negative keyword list going. And these are the sort of most basic and most effective steps that you can take to really fix your campaign. So first, let's talk a little bit ad group architecture. If you have ad groups, and within these ad groups you have keywords that are doing well, leave them there.
Yes, so again, remember, if you are looking in your AdWords campaign, you drill down from the campaign level to the ad group level. Within the ad group, you go to the Keywords tab. Next to each of those keywords is where you're going to see the individual keywords quality score. So you want to look and see what kind of diversity of quality scores do you have across an ad group. If you've got several keywords that are 4, 5s, and 6s and a few that are 2s and 3s, here's an opportunity to kind of break this down and isolate your bad quality scores from your good quality scores. Google does roll up quality scores, so it goes from a keyword level to an ad group level to a campaign level. So you want to try to isolate bad quality score keywords where you can, and in a lot of cases, and I think there's still some discourse about how much or how little it affects the campaign. Just pausing a low-quality score keyword can actually still have a negative effect on an ad group as it rolls up. So really what you want to do is move those keywords into a new ad group and delete them from the current ad group.
All right, so build out your new ad groups with your poorly performing keywords. If these are keywords that you really think should work for you, correct? I mean, would you say, is there any instance in which you should get rid of them altogether? Can you delete them?
I mean, this is such an individual thing. If I think this keyword is really core to my business, but it is getting a low quality score, I need to look at what are all the elements at play there. I would take those, let's say it's a handful of keywords, 5 or less. I want them to be tightly themed, so they're all along the same themes because they're going to be presented with the same ad. Move them into a separate ad group. Look at the bid price and how it relates to the position. Obviously, if you're appearing in a very low position, you're in position 8 or 9, or you're appearing on the second page, that's going to garner you low click-through rate, which is the overall component of this quality score. So you want to be smart about it. Isolate them. If they're important, think about the ad, make sure it's relevant. The keyword should actually be reflected in the ad copy. Look at the landing page it goes to. Is this the optimal landing page for keywords of this theme? If it's not, test a different landing page. If it is a great landing page, but you're still seeing that low quality score, look at some of the behind the scenes stuff. I would look at your metadata. So you're talking your meta keywords tag, meta description tag, the page title. Those things can be important factors when Google's trying to assign this relevancy.
All right, and then next, if you want these keywords to really start working right off the bat, write new ads and bid high. So we're going to talk a little bit about the practice of bidding high to get your keywords to have a higher click-through rate in just a moment in our next section, which is called click-through tricks. So remember that in addition to having a strongly or a heavily weighted factor of keyword relevance to the ad on the landing page, Google also cares a lot about click-through rate. In fact, some people say that they care as much as 75% about click-through rate.
Yes, they do not explicitly say how they weight the different factors of quality score, but obviously caring about click-through rate is in Google's best interest, right? Think about it. They want the ads that are going to be most likely to be clicked because they only earn money when things are clicked. It is a pay-per-click system, so they want ads with highest click-through rate, and obviously they favor them, pretty severely, and quality score is one mechanism that they use to do that.
Everyone, we're getting a lot of questions. Make sure you keep typing your questions right into the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can at the end.
Awesome.
All right. So there are a couple different reasons that people click on your ad. One, they see your ad. So if your ad is on the second or third or fourth page, they're not going to see your ad. So they need to be able to see your ad because it's in a high position, and your ad catches their eye. So you have a great offer. It's relevant. They see their keyword right in it. It pops off of the page. There are lots of different ways for you to write ad copy that will really pop, and we've done a bunch of content on this, which you can check out at trada.com/resources. But fundamentally, there are two big reasons here. So if we want to get that click-through rate, which will help you repair your campaign, you need to make sure that people can see your ad and make sure that your ad catches their eye.
Absolutely. So, specifically when we're talking optimal position in search, it varies and it depends on the cost per click and, what your conversion rates are and are you hitting your ROI or CPA goal with your campaign. But think about it, the better positions are obviously going to garner you a higher click-through rate. They're going to improve your quality score. As Anna mentioned earlier, we typically tell people to put the vanity aside and don't go for that number one spot. That number one spot, and in some cases the number 2 spot, they both have quite a bit higher average cost per click price, and they tend to lead to a high bounce rate. So a lot of times the visibility is great, but they actually, just because you're on the top of the page, will kind of impulse click that ad and quickly hit the back button, abandoning your site. You may have been charged at that point a pretty hefty sum to bring that visitor in who didn't really read the ad, wasn't interested in your content. They just kind of clicked on it because Google presented it as the top clickable item on the page.
Yeah, so we say generally it's not worth it to fight for that position.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about how to get your click-through rate up. Bid popping, one of our favorite topics here at Trada. Bid popping is the practice of bidding artificially high on keywords to get them to positions 2 through 5, because this will increase your CTR and thus increase your quality score. Now, this is a great trick if you have just pulled poorly performing keywords out of ad groups, placed them into their own new ad groups, written new ads, gotten new landing pages going. This is a great way to spend just a little bit of your extra budget to get those things moving more quickly.
Exactly, and the reason why we say artificially high is because we understand that it may not be sustainable to put those ads in those positions, but by coming out with an aggressive bidding strategy, you're going to garner high click-through rate early on, and then you start to ratchet that down. So I would suggest 10 to 15% increments in terms of decreasing that cost per click. You're going to have to kind of test the waters to see how many positions you slide when you make those bid price changes. But start high, garner that good click-through rate. That positive history will kind of stay with you. And then don't pull the rug out and drop your bids in half and see everything kind of fall to pieces. Ratchet it down. And so you have to be a little methodical here. Make notes of when you're making these changes. Make notes of the position for the results after you make each change to see how many positions you're slipping, and you should be able to sustain that good quality score click-through rate.
Now, this is not necessarily something that you have to do. You could skip this step. Simply, pull keywords out of your ad groups that are poorly performing, write new ads, and wait for this to sort of organically start to work. But this is a great way to see what's working very quickly, and depending on your volume, you could do this whole process relatively fast.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how many clicks you're getting per day or per week. You want a decent body of clicks to build that history.
So I'm going to talk quickly about how to sort of address the idea of having very compelling ad copy, but this is something that we've done entire webinars on before. So if you'd like to learn more about how to write great ad copy, I think we have 3 or 4 webinars specifically on how to attack the complicated idea of being creative and working with landing pages and all the different types of offers and ways to differentiate yourself. Check out these webinars at trada.com/resources.
Yeah, it really is where art meets science. You have to be creative, but there's also a few best practices, so great content there.
But in my opinion, it's the most fun part.
That would be your opinion.
All right, here's just a couple of quick tips for getting eye-catching ad copy, because remember, people click on your ads for a couple of reasons. 1, they can see them, and 2, they think they look really great. So one tip that we always suggest when people are trying to repair their campaigns is to search on some of your own terms and see what your competitors are writing. Now, you can take 2 different strategies here. You can try and assume that your competitors are all writing the ads that look sort of the same for a reason and that it's working, or you can try to differentiate. I'm a big fan of the differentiation topic. However, you can always test ads. You should always be testing your ads. Don't trust your gut. But here are a few things that you can differentiate on. If everyone has a deal on price, maybe you can say we have a great shipping deal. If you aren't able to compete on price, and sometimes fundamentally your business is not able to compete with some of your bigger customers, you could say something like we have a huge selection, or this is a secure download. Or one of my favorites is an actual testimonial about how we have the greatest service. If you won some sort of service award, maybe somebody will prefer to click on your ad than something that costs a little bit less.
Absolutely. People still use the internet to price shop aggressively. It's a very common thing. So if you're in that low price provider category, make sure your price is in the ad. If you're not, you've got to figure out ways to get people's attention away from that. And if you're price competitive but you're not going to be the lowest price, Anna makes some great points. Talk about your other value props. The 2 things for me that really stick out when I'm looking for a great ad are, 1, is it exactly what I'm looking for? If it's a product search or a service search, I want to know that ad tells me that this is going to lead me right to what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for blue Nike Air Pegasus running shoes, I want the ad to tell me that, so I know I'm going to land on that page, not just go to Nike.com and have to go 10 more pages in, right? So I want to know they understood what I'm looking for, they have that product or offer that service, and they're going to take me right there. And then where I can, I try to squeeze in a value proposition, whether that's a price or free shipping or whatever might lead me to take the next step.
Yeah. All right. Good tips. So finally, use really compelling, emotionally charged language. Don't let your ads be boring. Say things like, we have a massive selection. We have incredible deals. I know this may seem silly, but this has been proven to increase click-through rate. This, combined with your awesome new bid popping strategy, can really make your ad just start to win very, very quickly. Rock bottom prices. Add a sense of urgency. Offer ends soon. Add a very specific date. Offer ends on February 18th. Buy now before they're all gone. It may seem sort of lowest common denominator, but it gets results.
It does, and using that language, I think, also helps smaller businesses to compete with big businesses. Walmart doesn't have to say huge selection. Everyone knows Walmart has a huge selection. But if you're a specialty retailer, but you have a good selection in a particular niche, let the world know that, and then it puts you on parity with those bigger vendors.
Yeah, frankly, Walmart is, and Target and Amazon are often some of the competitors that you are most likely to be able to compete with on ad copy because they have so many gazillions of products that they use dynamic keyword insertion and a lot of other ways to sort of cut corners, and so most of their ads are pretty boring. If you look at the Amazon ads, they're like, shoes, we have shoes. Buy shoes here. Like, you can write a much better ad than that.
Yeah, they end up with big cookie-cutter ad campaigns, and you can be much more clever and eat away at some of their traffic.
Absolutely. All right, moving right along, because we are getting so many questions, I want to answer as many as possible. Let's talk about getting your settings dialed in. Now, we did a webinar specifically about PPC settings and how maybe the defaults aren't your friend just 2 weeks ago. I know I keep referencing earlier webinars, but I want you guys to have, as many materials as you possibly can. So you can find this webinar, I think it's called PPC Settings for Success at trada.com/resources. We get very specific about it. But let's talk a little bit about the settings that you should really think about, because often the defaults here are not the ones that are going to help you. So first of all, ad scheduling. In my opinion, this is the easiest change that you can make that can have the biggest impact on your campaign.
Other ways it is technically in Google parlance, ad scheduling. People also refer to this as day parting. So this is really looking at what time of day, day of week are your strong sales periods, where you both get great clicks and click-through rate, but also good conversion rate. You want to, assess your campaign, figure out when those peak times are, and make sure you're maximizing your budget and your exposure during those times. We also have, the other settings that we covered on that previous webinar are things like location or geo-targeting. For those of you out there on a limited budget for your PPC campaign, maybe it doesn't make sense to run nationwide. If you can isolate some parts of the country that tend to lead to better sales or a higher average order value, things like that, maybe you isolate those geos and make sure that you're targeting them with an appropriate amount of budget. We also talk about ad rotation. There's a couple different ways that Google will choose to serve your ad. They can either serve it kind of in a standard fashion where they spread it out over the day, or they can accelerate that serving so you're going to get more impressions.
That's ad delivery you're talking about.
Ad delivery. That's right.
Ad rotation is when you are testing several ads within an ad group, which you should always be doing, and you can choose to either have them deliver the one that is getting the best click-through rate, the one that is getting the best conversion rate, or you can have them deliver it evenly. Deliver them evenly. So these are a lot of things that we go into in a great deal of depth in the webinar that we had 2 weeks ago, which you should check out. Matt and myself, I believe, are both on this webinar. And this will really, really, give you a very in-depth view of exactly how you should be setting your settings. So finally, and this is another biggie when it comes to making sure that you aren't wasting click spend. And one of the ways that people perceive their campaigns to be failing, and this definitely came out during that poll we had, is I'm spending too much on clicks and conversions. And this is a great way to make sure that people aren't clicking your ads that are never going to convert.
Mm-hmm. Negative keyword lists, yep, it absolutely just keeps things focused. It's easy to do, but it's tough to kind of keep up with. To me, negatives should be an iterative process. Every month, you may want to be adding a handful of negatives as you look at your search query reports and things like this, where you see ways that people looked at your campaign. They typed in a query that wasn't actually all that related, and you ended up paying for a click because of that.
Yeah, this is something that you should work on forever. But just to get started, you can think of all the things that people might search that might end up with your ad showing up where they will never, ever, ever convert. So if you have auto repair and you have an auto repair shop, here, Matt's auto repair shop.
Clearly something I would never search.
Because you know how to repair your own autos. Someone might type in auto repair school, click on your ad, realize you're not a school, immediately bounce and waste your money. Same with foreign auto repair. Maybe you only repair Fords and, someone is looking for Toyotas.
Absolutely. Again, this is about spending your money wisely. Most of us in this PPC world have limited budgets to work with, and we don't want every visitor. We want the right visitors.
Yep, so it's very simple. Just add negative keywords, add the word foreign, the word free, the word miniature, the word school. For many paid search campaigns, the first one people start with is free.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times people are out there doing the total cost-conscious thing, and putting free as a qualifier will really, it'll help you split up your audience, and you just say, we don't want to target that free audience.
Yep, and Chris just left a comment. We find that setting up a general negative keyword list and then applying it to all the campaigns is a great budget saver.
Bam.
Backing it up.
Chris, already doing best practices. I like it.
Yep. All right, so here is how you can continually curate your negative keyword list. Pull a search terms report. It's really easy. All you do is click on campaigns, keywords, and then down here you see search terms. Go ahead and click on all, and this will show you everything that anyone ever typed in that resulted in a click. And I believe you can also sort it by conversions, or maybe
depends where you do your conversion tracking. If you are doing your conversion tracking through AdWords, you can see if some of these search terms did or did not lead to a conversion. It depends. A lot of people do use third-party tracking tools. Makes it a little bit cloudier.
Now, this is one of the most valuable reports you can pull. I mean, this will give you just incredible insight into what people are typing in. This can help you not only build out your negative keyword lists, but also possibly think of new ways to write ad copy and think of ways to build out your keyword lists as well. So this is a great report, incredibly easy to pull. You can see that it's right here on the campaign screen.
Yep, and so this is just inside your Google AdWords campaign. So should be pretty straightforward. Go into the campaign, go to the Keywords tab, and from there, it's got highlighted in the screen, you want to say see all search terms, not just your search terms, and that will give you your kind of queries report.
Yep. Oh, Robert has a tip. Just download the search into Excel and you sort and filter, and that is a way to do it by conversions, correct?
Yes, so. Yes. If you're tracking conversions through Google, putting this in Excel will make it a lot easier for all of you to just kind of sort through if you've got a lot of keywords in your campaign.
Thanks, Robert. Great tip. I know I keep saying I'm only going to leave questions and comments till the end, but then these ones keep coming up that are so relevant.
Well, and it's nice to have it be participatory.
All right, so finally we're going to end on a somewhat depressing note.
Oh, wah-wah.
When should you give up? Now, don't worry, the answer is almost never.
And this isn't on life, right? This is just on PPC.
Just on PPC. Look at this sad lady.
Oh, no.
Here is a possible scenario in which maybe you should consider, and we hate saying this, that maybe search is not for you.
This is also a possible scenario where Anna got to use a picture of a cat wearing a beret, which is her favorite thing ever.
It is pretty much my favorite thing ever. So there is this idea that you may have a product or a service that is incredibly innovative. Now, we actually see a lot of this, not a lot of this, but we see this occur more in B2B. Say you have a software solution that is utterly innovative. This is something that no one has ever done before. The problem with search is that people need to be searching in order for search to work.
Exactly.
So if you have a product that solves a problem that people didn't even realize existed, you probably have a great product. But it's possible that people aren't really looking for this. So I actually did a search volume check, which I'm trying to remember which tool we used to find search volume.
Probably Google's external traffic estimator.
I believe so, yes. It will tell you how many searches in a given time period are given on that term. So if you type in the word shoes, it's like 80 bazillion. But if you type in cat berets, it actually says no search information available. Now, if you're selling cat berets, yes, I want to be your friend, but maybe search is not for you because people may not be searching on this term.
That's right. And maybe you should buy some display advertising on catfancy.com or LOL Cats or whatever it is. There are other ways to advertise your product, but if people aren't inherently looking for it, it's really tough to have that success via search. Now, for those of us with established products and services, search is so great because we're hitting these buyers and these shoppers right at the time that they're making the queries, but it just doesn't translate for every industry.
Yep. All right, goodbye, cat berets. And then finally, and this is something, we want to let you know that this is only when things are really, really seriously bad. If your account is totally wrecked beyond repair, you may consider starting again with a new account. Now, we had Google in our offices a couple months ago, and one thing that they said repeatedly was, basically don't tell anyone to do this ever.
Yep.
Because if you actually start with a new account, your information will be duplicated, and it just totally won't work. So it's only if you seriously can't save it, if it's just totally set up incorrectly, and only if you are intending to restructure it entirely, and if you'll be sending traffic to a new domain.
Yeah, so those are the cases when you would switch to a brand new, fresh Google AdWords account, but typically you want to try to make your changes within your current account. Now that can mean new campaigns. It certainly almost always means new ad groups and new keywords, new negatives, but going to a new account, You don't want to run them at the same time. Google will only serve one or the other for a particular keyword and a particular domain pairing, so you can't ever double serve anyway. So they're saying try to keep it within the same account unless you are starting over with a new domain, or you have a campaign that's so far gone and you're going to do some major upgrades to the site, take the whole thing offline for a little bit, relaunch the site. Now maybe it's the same domain but heavily refreshed. You got rid of all that flash and it's indexable and you're going to get a better quality score. Maybe that is a case that you start a new account.
And one thing you should definitely never do is actually duplicate your account. So don't pull out all your data and then re-upload it to a new account, because Google will see that and they'll say, hang on a minute, this is the old account.
Yeah, I mean, they know by domain, so the only possible purpose for doing this is if you're repurposing the content to work with a new domain. If you had a fairly successful campaign, but you're now migrating to a new domain, in that case, I mean, you could simply change the domains on all of your ads, or you could start a new account. In this case, that would be okay. But if you're going to run the same domain, don't just pull your stuff down and try to start it in a new account and see what happens. Obviously, you think you're going to get a clean slate in terms of past history and quality score, but Google identifies that stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, I mean, the sort of final thought here is, I know we talked about a lot of stuff today. I know it seems tough, but most of these changes are relatively simple, relatively quick, and can have a huge impact on how much it will improve your account. And so starting anew is almost never the right option.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're going to get to your questions in just a moment, but first we're going to talk for just a moment about how Trada can help you with your online advertising. So Matt and myself both work at Trada. I work for the marketing team. Matt works for the account management team. And we actually have a solution which allows you to run paid search and Facebook campaigns, have some other people do some of the work for you, and it actually doesn't cost any more than if you were to do it yourself, which sounds incredible, I know. So the way it works is we have thousands of online advertising experts, and they work within our marketplace. They are certified. They've passed rigorous certification exams. They have progressive access. So you know that they're the right people, and they do the PPC and Facebook ads for you. They work on your behalf. They apply to join your campaigns. You run your campaigns through Trada, and you can run across multiple ad networks, and they work in multiples. So you may have 5, 10, 15 people all working for you, except that you don't have to buy them desks or fill out W-9 forms or 2 or whatever. And they're actually paid based on performance. So they are paid when they beat your goals. Because there are many people working on a campaign, you get this great diversity of thinking. They come up with all these keywords and all these ads, and they do all this bid optimization. They have the time to check in and make changes, and again, you can run on multiple ad networks.
And this is a great solution for those of you out there that are listening to this, because your campaign's been unattended and you're at best getting to look at this thing 5, 10 hours a month. If you could have 5 to 10 people looking at it, even if each of them only looks at it 2 hours a week, you're talking about a significant increase in just eyes looking at that campaign, looking for ways to refine it every day, every week.
And unlike other solutions, believe it or not, you can actually afford it, because all you do is you set a monthly budget, which is something that you're doing anyway, and then you set goals for clicks and conversions, and our optimizers work very, very hard to get clicks and conversions below those costs, and then they keep the difference. So there are no setup fees, there are no management fees, you can get started right away. I'm going to go through a very quick little case study. This is a client of ours called Turbine. Now they run the online Dungeons & Dragons game, which I think is really cool. And they launched a campaign with us, and they have 15 people working on their campaign, where before they only have the one guy. He focuses on high-level management. He sees all the data. He makes executive decisions, and he's had massive conversion click-through rate and cost per conversion reduction of 16%, which is a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we look to get 3 and 4% gains on a lot of these campaigns, so to see numbers like this is awesome.
Yeah, it really is. So, this is a guy who used to do it all himself. Now he has a whole bunch of help, and it costs really the same as he was spending before. So we're going to move right along to questions. If you guys are interested in getting a Trada demo, there's, you don't have to sign up for anything. There's no pressure. We just like to show you how the marketplace works. I'm sure you'd like to learn a little bit more about it. Go ahead and type "I'd like a demo" right into the chat box. Now, if you will give me just a moment to get organized here with all the questions. Actually, Matt, would you talk a little bit about our weekly podcast, which everyone should sign up for, while I get organized with the questions?
Yes, Anna and I have been taking this show on the road and doing a weekly podcast. They're typically I don't know, I think we try to keep them to 5 to 7 minutes so they're not, something that's going to take up anybody's day. We try to keep them very topical. If there's things that have happened in search in a particular week, we touch on some Facebook and display stuff as well, and just what's happening on the internet. Sometimes we do have great takeaways that are best practice stuff that will be helpful to your PPC campaigns. Sometimes it's just getting feedback and talking about changes that Google's made, their search plus your world, or new algorithm shifts, things like that. So if you want to keep up to date, iTunes makes it super easy. Subscribe to the podcast. Every time there's a new one and your iTunes is open, it'll download it for you, and it'll be the best 5 to 7 minutes of listening on your way to work that you could possibly hope and dream for.
Yeah, you can just go into iTunes, type in Trada. You'll find us. I think Sarah will also type the link in so everyone can find it. Thank you. And believe it or not, it's also kind of entertaining.
Yeah, we try.
We try. All right, I have a bunch of questions all over my screen, so I'm going to kick this off with one from Jonathan. This is a great question. I have a competitor with a bigger budget. We've all been there. Upping the bids on my branded keywords to force my cost per click up and pay more per click. Is there anything I can do?
There are a couple things. If you're talking about truly isolating just your brand terms, there's a chance that you can file for trademark exception. So, like, you would get trademark protection from Google. You do have to be the owner of that trademark federally, and they will ask for some ways to prove that. But you can protect that trademark. That will keep them from showing their ads at all on some of those terms, might save you some money on some of your branded stuff. You should be, in fact, outpacing them from a quality score perspective. So if you're bidding competitively, you may actually get clicks cheaper than they are getting them. I would also make sure to note in the brand, like in the ad itself, if I was using my brand as maybe the title line, I would actually put the little trademark symbol next to it. Let people know in the ad copy that you're the official provider of whatever the brand is. I think a lot of people see a lot of credence in that, and they want to go straight to the source. So instead of letting your competitor bully you, you may see your click-through rate go up just by putting that little TM or registered trademark icon next to your name in your own ad copy, and Google will allow for that.
We have also seen people put official site.
Yeah.
That actually can really increase your click-through rate.
Absolutely. I mean, that stuff will help, and if your click-through rate is good, I mean, again, be careful when you're assessing whether this is a truly an ego thing or if this is good paid search. If they're willing to outpay you, but you're getting a click-through rate that you feel is acceptable, those visitors are turning into new customers, new engagements for you, maybe it's okay to let them, run away with their costs.
Thanks, Matt. All right, this next question is from Gersh. I apologize if I'm misspelling your name. Really interesting question, and a philosophical question.
Oops.
We have a minimum order value, and including this in the ad obviously lowers click-through rates, but also lowers poor converting visitors. So what do you suggest?
Wow.
Testing. I suggest testing is my answer.
Well, what do you mean by testing? Let's talk about how testing could help there.
I think, especially if this is a thing where, someone has to get on the phone and you have to spend time on this, like having a lower click-through rate but a higher conversion rate could be very much worth it for you because your team isn't wasting time on people who are never going to convert. I think having qualifying numbers is often a good idea, but you need to, consider your overall ROI, which is something that is, takes a lot of time and thought to calculate. But figure out, time lost with someone wasting time on the phone versus having, a higher click-through rate versus all. There are a lot of factors at play here, but I think you could very well be right that having that qualifying number in there to get a lower click-through rate might help. However, getting a lower click-through rate does decrease your quality score in your ad position, so you have to consider that as well. There's so many factors here.
There are, and the other thing I would say is, think about the two things slightly separately. One is how do we get the right visitors to the site? If we feel like this is a good prospective customer, we don't want to necessarily dissuade them with this minimum order value. The flip side of that is once they're on the landing page, you have to, you don't want to ever feel like you've created a bait and switch environment. What you want to do is talk about that minimum and why, spending a little bit more is going to get them more value. I assume, most cases, yes, there's a minimum order, but maybe there's some economy of scale, and you're actually going to get a better value if you order a little bit more. So present it as a positive value proposition if that's possible. And I would be inclined to say don't dissuade somebody by putting the minimum order value in the ad, but Anna's absolutely right. You should test both ways, see the effects on click-through rate, and ultimately try to look at the conversion rate by ad as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this is something that we actually hear a lot of. Another thing that you could do is you could not mention the minimum and then have a qualifying lead form on the next page. So, yes, you'll be paying for a few more clicks, but maybe your sales team or whatever won't be wasting time. The other thing is, say, for example, that your minimum order is $500 and someone thinks that they are prepared to spend $400. You don't want to turn them away because they're like, oh, $500, that's more than I was planning to spend, because you may have been able to convince them, as Matt sort of touched on. So this is tricky, but I think, calculating your overall ROI, including as many factors as you possibly can, and being really methodical about testing is the way to make this decision.
Absolutely. Great question.
Tricky question. I like that. Here is a question from Alexi. She wants to know how important is it to measure, well, she says how important is adding conversion rates to your campaigns? I believe she's saying how important is it to measure your conversion rate?
So it doesn't really affect campaign performance, but we here at Trada, we're very ROI focused, so we believe conversion tracking is absolutely essential for you to understand the overall performance. I believe the holy grail in search is when you've basically hit that positive ROI, and then it's just a matter of volume. It's how many people can we bring to the site. We know that for every $15 we spend in search, we make 25. Well, then this is cash positive. You only learn those stats by tracking those conversions. Once you have that data, then you can make good cases for increasing budget and just getting to expand your campaign and dominate the space.
All right, thanks, Matt. So I have a question from Beth, who it seems as though may run or work for an agency. She says, I have several small business clients with low budgets. What is the minimum monthly spend to start seeing results with Google AdWords, assuming we have taken all of your other good advice?
So minimum monthly spend is a double-edged sword because it really depends on what your average CPC is. To me, when you say seeing results, you need them to be quantifiable, repeatable results, not just, anybody can spend $100 a month with Google AdWords. They don't enforce a minimum, but you may have such little data that you don't have a great idea what's working and what's not. So to me, it's a function of, what could I do to get a respectful number of clicks per month, maybe 500, maybe 1,000. You're going to have to test a little bit, find out what that average CPC is. If you're in a less competitive space and you're getting those clicks for 50 cents, your budget may be able to be pretty low. If you're in a highly competitive space, you're working with local lawyers, and some of the lawyer CPCs are up in the $25 per click realm, then you're going to need a healthier budget for you to get the click data you need to figure out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, and keep in mind that not only, do you have to pay a certain amount for a click, but a very small percent of clicks actually convert. It totally depends on your industry. So ignore what I'm about to say. But many people get a 2% conversion rate. So that means that for every 100 clicks, 98 of them don't result in a conversion. So if you only have enough budget to get 100 clicks a month, you may only be getting 2 conversions a month. Not only is that probably not enough conversions to see results, but it's not enough conversions to see any data and see what's working.
Yeah, it's really hard to see patterns in 1 and 2 conversions.
Exactly. And part of the reason we do have a minimum monthly budget here at Trada is because we want our Trada customers to be successful. And also because, these optimizers, the paid search experts and Facebook ads experts work on these campaigns, they need data to be able to optimize. So the truth is, with a very, very, very small budget, your money may be better spent elsewhere. Now, Beth, we do actually have an agency product where we, we offer our services to agencies. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about it, depending, on what your minimum budgets are, go ahead and type "I'd like a demo" into the box, and Sarah will set that up for you if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about how we can help you manage those campaigns. All right, next question from Matthew. When I create new ads, it seems like it takes some time before they are approved, and even then they're rarely shown. Any thoughts on how to fix this?
So the approval time depends a little bit on what space you're in. If things with pharmaceuticals, certain things are flagged for Google where they actually put it through a human review, so it can take some time to get approved. If you are writing new ads and you have old ads already in rotation, and you have your settings such that they're set to maximize the click-through rate, they will probably defer to the old ad until they get enough impression data to know that the new ad might have the same or higher click-through rate. If you want them to show more quickly, I would change your ad rotation settings to AB or 50-50 split test, so they will serve an even number of impressions for both ads. It'll help you get that ad data feedback a whole lot quicker than if you have it set at the default setting, which maximizes the click-through rate. Again, maximum click-through rate is good for Google. In a lot of cases, it can be good for you, but if you really want to quickly test new ads, you may have to change that under your AdWords settings.
All right, thanks, Matt. Next question from Edward. If I change some content in my landing page, keeping the same URL, will it reset the quality score of the ads?
Yes, it should. It can.
Over time.
It depends how many changes you made. Again, quality score being a factor of several things. So they're looking at the relationship of the keywords of the ad. Do those seem relative? They're then looking at how well those two items relate to the landing pages. So in the example you gave, you just changed the landing page, so you've changed one of those elements. You also have the click-through rate element, which can be a big function of the overall quality score. So I would say I always encourage people to make those changes to the landing pages. I think it's a good practice if the landing page is nice and specific, maybe to test some of those top keywords in a fresh new ad group to this newly kind of revised landing page. But you should see quality score is reassessed at every click, according to Google. So they don't know on the impressions because they look at click-through rate as a factor. But every time you get a click, they're reassessing that quality score.
All right, guys, we are running a little short on time, but I'm going to get to as many questions as I can, so we're going to go through these as quickly as we can. If we didn't get to your question, we still want to answer it, so please email Sarah at sfox@trada.com, and she'll make sure that your question gets to the right person. So next up, great one from Laura. What are your recommendations for bidding on misspellings of your brand name?
Ooh, I like this question. The misspellings and mistypings thing, I think there is still some opportunity, but I would also say it depends how you set up the keyword structure on your campaign. Those of you that are familiar with match types out there, if you're running your own brand name as a broad match, you should be capturing and be serving for most misspellings and mistypings, unless they're gross misspellings, which then you get into, it's trickier to predict, and are they a good possible customer if they've blatantly misspelled your brand name. So think about that as a factor. If you are running your brand name as an exact match or even phrase match, you may want to include some of the top misspellings. You should be pricing them at a lower level than your actual brand term.
And one thing I would suggest never doing is comparing misspellings with dynamic keyword insertion.
Ooh, good point. So if you are running dynamic keyword insertion in your ads, you want to make sure to remove that and have a regular ad without the DKI so that you don't look kind of odd for posting the misspellings in the ad copy itself.
If you're not sure what dynamic keyword insertion is, you know what I'm about to say.
I'll probably go to our resource library.
Yeah. We did a webinar on it. It has ninjas in it. All right, next question. Josh has a technical question. What does it mean when there is no quality score in your dashboard? Some of mine simply have a double dash. Does this mean 0, or does this mean no data?
I'm likely to say it means no data. That would be if you have impressions but no clicks.
Are these new?
I would guess it might be new keywords. It's been a while since I've seen that myself. I'm trying to think if I've run across a use case where I've seen an absence of quality score.
I don't think I've ever run across a use case where Matt is stumped.
Well, I just don't want to give out any misinformation. I like to speak from the heart, so I'm not sure exactly. And make sure you are running in search, not display. If you've got this could be, and I think this is a comment from one of our other listeners.
Oh, no, it's from Josh.
Oh, from Josh, on Google Display Network. Okay, so that could be the total different thing. So display, and this is a whole nother webinar in and of itself, but I would always break my display campaign separate from my search. I know it's really easy to just opt into that display network within your campaign settings, but they give very, very different pieces of data. So if you're getting impressions and clicks from display but not search, they won't assign a quality score because the click-through rate is so vastly different in display than it is in search. It kind of confounds your results, and I would isolate those as two separate campaigns. So
yeah, I mean,
thanks for the clarification, Josh.
Yeah, they really work very differently, display and search, and the expectations are different. I mean, so as Matt says, it can be tempting to just say, oh, let's add this, but you should keep them really separate.
And this way I get to keep my spotless resume of always having an answer for your questions. I started to sweat there for a second.
I was concerned. All right, 3 more questions. In a B2B context, Greg wants to know, how do you determine a conversion has occurred when the buying cycle for some products may take many months? Great question, Greg.
Absolutely. So this is where you have to position your search campaign more around the acquisition of a lead than an actual committed customer, and you're going to have to monitor your buying cycle. You can use Google Analytics. It ties in with several tools. You can tie it in with Salesforce and things like that to eventually pair up that data. But 3 months or 6 months, in some cases, way too long to be running a high-spend pay-per-click campaign while you're waiting to see what converts down the line. So what you have to really look at is your sales funnel. Set something up on the early part that is just lead acquisition. I'm interested in talking to one of your sales reps, blah, blah, blah. They've completed a form. You really need to use that as your measurable conversion action. And then you absolutely have an obligation on the back end to know what those keywords were that drove the initial lead and follow those leads through to close and pair that back to the campaign. So most of the time you'll find pretty good trends of keywords that are positively driving leads. Those leads should close to sale unless they're kind of superfluous keywords.
Now there's some big fancy tools you can also use for this. Marketing automation tools, which will help you track all the way through the end of the buying cycle. Generally not cheap.
Yep. I mean, you're talking Marketo maybe,
yeah.
Things like that.
We did a webinar with Performable a few months ago. They specifically focus on multi-channel touch points and how to see when someone found you on Twitter and then Googled you and then whatever and then clicked and then later they converted. So there are tools for this, but I don't know about free ones. Aside from Google Analytics, which can be robust but can't track all of this.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times these sales, the transaction actually takes place offline, right? It becomes a consultative thing where it's in person or over the phone, and making sure that you tie that data back in can be really tricky.
All right, the last 2 questions come from Ilya and Matt. I promise I will get to both of yours. Everyone else, if we missed your question, please, and you are dying to have it answered, email it to sfox@trada.com and we'll make sure it gets to the right person. First, Ilya, both my ad and landing page include my targeted keyword, but Google still gives it a low quality score. Why is that?
Good question, and tough to totally answer without seeing some of these things. I would make sure that you have, when you say that the keyword is included in the landing page, that's included in the right places. I mean, you want that content to be on the page. Preferably, if it's a high priority keyword, you should try to incorporate it in the page title. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the metadata, which has become a little bit passé for hardcore SEO people, but things like meta keyword tags and meta description, if you can make sure that keyword is playing in those fields, it can help your quality score overall. And then, obviously, once you get by those kind of, hey, everything's where it should be, then you really have to look at your ad position and your click-through rate. It's always tough because Google is looking at click-through rate not as an absolute but as a relative. So if you think you're getting a pretty good click-through rate, hey, I've got a 1.4 click-through rate on average in this ad group, but I'm still getting this crappy quality score, that could mean that your competitors are on average getting a 2% click-through rate. So in that case, I'd look at their ad copy, see what they're doing, see what might be effective, try to incorporate some of those techniques in your own ads.
Yeah, for here, remember that while no one knows the real numbers because Google is so secretive, no one knows the actual breakdown of keyword landing page relevance and then also click-through rate. But we do presume, and we have a lot of data to back up the idea that click-through rate is much more heavily weighted. So here you've talked about how you have great relevance, but I think it's now time to focus on click-through rate. So try those two things we talked about before. Write some killer ad copy, bid high, see what happens.
Yep.
That's what we suggest. All right, last question. This is from Matt. Matt, my best quality scores have low search volume. So what can we do about low search volume? Now, we touched on this before. Matt, you may be selling cap arrays.
Uh-oh, Matt's in the cap array business. Always tricky. We'll send you Anna's email directly after this. Low search volume and as per the initial survey, a lot of people are worried about low conversion volume. It's a really tough thing to overcome. I mean, I would use tools like Google Keyword Traffic Estimator, see what's out there in total for your top quality score keywords. Make sure you're not missing the boat with match types. You might want to try to loosen your match types. Something like an exact match is probably going to garner a better quality score, but if you're getting high relevancy and high click-through rate, you can maybe play with that and make that a phrase match and see if your volume goes up a little bit as you're exposed to more search queries. I would also look in the Google AdWords settings. Under your campaign settings, you can set this to accelerated ad serving. So that's going to get you in front of a maximum amount of impressions for your daily budget. So you could try that. That might help a little bit. But really, at that point, I think you're into the hard work of keyword expansion. It's trying to think a little bit outside the box. How else do people search for my product or service? Are there ancillary terms? Now, build those in separate ad groups so you don't dilute the quality score of these good core ad groups, but test some new things, and hopefully your other keywords are going to see a little better volume. For some niche products, as we said, you hit those volume plateaus, and you don't want to beat your head against the wall. There's that point of diminishing returns where you're going to invest a lot of time to try to get an extra 4 or 5% click volume, and because there's just not that much there, and maybe you should be thinking of other ways to approach the problem.
Yep. All right. Thanks so much, Matt. Everyone, thank you for sticking around a little bit longer than we normally go. You had so many great questions, and we wanted to answer all of them. You still have about a moment to request a demo if you're interested in having Trada help you out with your paid search. Geniuses like myself and Matt will be working on your campaign for you. You also have about a minute to tweet using the hashtag, which will put you into a drawing to win a $25 Amazon.com
What is
gift
it again?
card.
Fix PPC?
Hashtag is #FixPPC. So tweet something out about the webinar. You have about a minute. And thank you so much, everyone. We will be sending out a recording and a copy of the slides later today, which hopefully will aid you in your campaign fixing. Hey, if you guys have success, shoot us an email. We want to hear about your success in fixing your PPC campaign.
Absolutely. And if I want a $25 gift card, how many cap arrays could that buy me on Amazon.com?
Those cap arrays are expensive. They're like $30.
Oh my God, I don't even get one cap array for an Amazon.
And my cat won't even wear it.
Ugh, worst.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. We will see you next week, I hope, for advanced AdWords tools with special guest CPC search.
Very cool.
Really exciting. All right, everyone, thank you so much. This is the end of the webinar.